Dirk Knutson in Hillsboro. Harold, for those of you that have been reading my stories and our stories, you'll know that we've covered the CHIPS Act, Senate Bill 4, happening in Salem from several different angles. But boy, after looking at 72 sites, the real focus has come down to Hillsboro. I guess those locals here in Hillsboro, we knew it was because we've got the semiconductor cluster that the city testified to over in this area. We'll start by quickly looking at that, and you can see here with the Ronler Acres hub, about 512 acres, multiple buildings, tens of thousands of employees, and then these buildings here are the suppliers, the advanced technology manufacturing businesses. Lindy Gas Corp is over here. Toso Quartz is here, and these are the just-in-time delivery companies that we've heard so much testimony about. Okay, so here's the state of play in Hillsboro, and I'm probably one of the few people that knows so much about this just because I'm in real estate. I've done a fair amount of commercial, and I'm very active in the city. Everyone kind of knows that. So let's just break down a little bit what happened, and I'm going to go through this quickly. The green line is the Hillsboro urban growth boundary line. This is the boundary beyond which Hillsboro, to which Hillsboro can grow. And here's our west boundary, here on the edge of the city near Glencoe High. Coming back here along the Evergreen Road. This is our northwest housing section, including Jackson School and Fishback Creek and some just fantastic neighborhoods. The green dash line then, as a result of the Grand Bargain, moves north towards Highway 26, makes a big bend over a beautiful 20-acre lake, and then finds itself back at 26, follows 26 back to Helvetia, north on Helvetia, and then east to Bethany. So all of this land that you're seeing my hand move around up in here, that's all protected farmland. That's Helvetia area. Okay. And because of the Grand Bargain, this block of land was protected as rural reserve. This 383 acres is protected as rural reserve right now. So is the roughly 1,400 acres here. So the state of play happening in Salem. A number of things. We've all heard the testimony about the economic packages being extended, the research and development, the educational pieces. There's a lot of money flowing into the state, and all of the cities around Oregon have a shot to be a player. But the fact is, the large campuses need to be here in Hillsboro, and that's because to land a big player like an Intel, like a Taiwan Semiconductor, like Samsung, it needs to be a site in our existing semiconductor cluster, and that's not a statement of fact. That's just the way it is in the eyes of most insiders. Now, that who knows, could go differently, and we may never get one. But the fact is, here we are at the door, about ready to approve not only the largest expansion of industrial, but we're doing it in a way as a state. If the Joint Semiconductor Task Force gets their way, they're going to allow the governor or themselves to simply take a pin and go beyond this green boundary as far as someone wants to or can argue to go. And you can see, look at what a massive area this is in comparison to what we already have. I mean, we are doubling our industrial land base, okay? Now, here's the Hillsboro Airport here. There's been testimony that Hillsboro has a bunch of land, which they do, in this yellow dashed area. They've done a great job of assembling about 140 acres here, and then there's another 120 here. And big regional sewer pump over here. We've got water, sewer, road infrastructure, a highway exchange here, another highway exchange here. I mean, this site is primed to go, and it is mostly flat with a little stream called Story Creek, to tell you a story, running right through here. Okay, state of play. Hillsboro has a site, 140 acres. Probably could get, for the right amount of money, this area here. And that would give them about a 260 acre site. So that's half the size of Ronler. Certainly as a phase one or as a mid-sized player coming in with a fab, this site is really important because it could start tomorrow. That's a fact. Dan Diaz from our economic development director did a great job in his presentation of stipulating and showing that. Now, beyond the green line are the areas that Dan talked about on behalf of the City of Hillsboro. He mentioned a 383-acre area, and there's a new rotary here at Scotch Church Meek Road in Jackson. This was originally supposed to be in the urban reserves, and late in the game during the grand bargain, it was pushed out. Okay. Dan then drew a line around this, and then the city, on Dan representing the City of Hillsboro, sort of put a mark on this. This is the future campus site, okay? And I guess I can't agree with him more. That's where I thought it would be before these hearings started. Last year when we heard rumblings this was happening, we went out and looked at it. We know some of the landowners. We kind of know what's happening, and it's a good site. Where this thing gets dicey in the eyes of a lot of people, myself included, is you take what's now an 807-acre site inside this yellow dashed line. That's 300 acres larger than Ronler Acres, okay? And these fabs have huge environmental impacts, everything from traffic to the recent news that they released hydrogen gas into the air, hydrogen chloride. In the past, they've dumped fluoride gas. You don't want these by people, and that's just a fact. And there's plenty of evidence in the file to show that fabs often become Superfund cleanup sites. I'm not going to get on that horse, and nobody's going to bite on that right now because the jobs seem to be driving this, the money and the jobs. Where we have a departure, I think, with a lot of people in the public here in Hillsboro and statewide, the farmers especially, is how in the heck do we jump over here and just suddenly grab the 700 acres of purple land, which is a Tier 2, Tier 3 site, meaning it's not ready yet, and we've got a lot of work to get it ready. Hillsboro did provide testimony through Mr. Diaz that this site would come along and support advanced manufacturing, suppliers, that sort of thing, that would then feed the campus. I get that. That's a whole hell of a lot of suppliers, and there's really loose language right now on what can actually go in here, and God forbid we end up with another 15 data centers because they are a horrible waste of space. That's what you're seeing over here. That is my opinion. They don't employ people, not great for the environment, and they're not crucial for our success here in Oregon. The purple's a kind of a reach, but I understand that it's in line with some thinking, and there is a creek, McKay Creek, along here that makes a good boundary. That has been argued. Dan also presented that this 700 acres was available quickly because it has sewer and water and everything along the urban growth boundary edge, and it could easily become a player. And I think he specifically named companies like Gyra Semiconductor and Corbo, and then smaller players that could play in here. So this week we wrote an article showing what that could look like, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And then a good deal of these landowners have signed this forward land agreement that they'll sell, and that they'll represent one person, and that one person has the power to negotiate, and they'll work with the city. And that's going to be a quid pro quo for getting in. So to me, that's nothing special. That simply means I want to go from 30,000 an acre, 50,000 an acre, maybe, as a speculative high-value farmland, which is what we call, doesn't matter if it's dry land or irrigated, farmland's generally hard to build on and it's protected. You get to go from that lower number, which is still, still something, that 30 to 50, that's his farmland value plus the speculation value that brokers add. And you get to go to 500 an acre or maybe 650 an acre. So you're talking about tens and tens of millions that some people stand to make. Should Governor Kotek take the power that Senate Bill 4 pretends to give her and simply say, let's move that line and let's make this happen. Now, I don't understand all the mechanics. Nobody does. But it looks like it would be very much like a Shark Tank opportunity at that point. She's going to be the shark, along with with Vince Porter, who spoke on Monday that he would be the liaison and kind of the head of it, and he and his staff would then work with the cities and these landowners to give Governor Kotek some guidance. That'll have to happen here in order to come up with this fab site, and then presumably it will have to happen here and here. there's some question about who's talked to who, whether some of the things that have happened have been completely out of the handbook of how you should do things, and that stuff's going to play itself out. I don't want to get into that too much right now. And then over here we have 408 acres, which Mr. Diaz also testified was super ready, and that is along Helvetia, across West Union, and then back down. And it's a flat, gentle block of land, fully serviced right on that interchange. There's a lot to like about this interchange in this area, and this interchange and these areas in terms of access, particularly this 383 acres as an extension of some of the urban growth, the Grand Bargain land that's in here, and this site over here. So I would say if outside panel was looking at this and didn't know the politics and the makeup of our land, they would look at this and say that 408 looks good, the 383 looks good, and the 700 looks good, and then the purple becomes a little bit more of a stretch. Now there's some things at play here. So let's take this base map and let's do a little flying around on Google Earth. Stand by. Okay, here's the same map on Google Earth, or Google Maps, excuse me, without quite as much, there's nothing really marked up, but it's the same orientation. We'll take a quick zoom in here, and I just want to show you guys something. And this shocks people who haven't seen it. People in high tech watching this, it's no surprise to you. But all of this monstrous equipment you see back here, this is a lot of technology going on with huge cooling fans. There's various chemical processing towers and things back in here, and I'm sure that it looks like something that a Machiavellian scientist of some sort built, but that is Intel Ronler Acres and the D1X, and it's a massive mamma jamma. Now, if you ever come to Hillsboro, you'll see a massive cloud of, looks like a white puffy cloud, and that comes out of that almost 24 hours a day. My understanding is this facility runs virtually nonstop, and there are some heavy gases. There is acids and different types of chemicals being used to etch on glass. And these are gas. This is Lindy gas. These are heavy gases like argons. There's different kinds of fuel and chemical storage in here. And, having been around the fab my whole life, and the fact is I live right here, I've got a front row seat the last 25 years watching all of this happen. So there is our semiconductor cluster that we just talked about. Here's the Hillsboro Airport. And then I just want to pull back and do a downward view one last time. So what we're talking about is expansions that go from here out to here, here, and then so on all the way up to here. Okay. So let's take a look here. These are some of the folks who got brought in during the Grand Bargain off of Sewell Road. This was what was known as Jackson East, Subarea A, and these people have beautiful homes. This was a long, drawn-out process of bringing in a lot of parcels for industrial land. And God love them, there's some fantastic people here, led by this family here, Kurt Vanderzand and his wife Darcy. And there are talks going on with our city right now. How do we get these folks taken care of and bought out of what's now been an industrial park? When looked at from this angle, we see the old Walt Erdman farm, So here is Hillsboro's new site, the 144 acres, and man, is it development perfection. Highway 26 is right here. It all looks so small until you get in there and you actually see, okay, this is still last year's photo. Luckily, we got some photo updates. So the big regional sewer pump, this is about a 40-foot deep hole in the ground with big pumps that will handle the sewer, pump it out of the region here, and move it around. And then in the data center, over here where the orcs are building the data centers, there's a bunch of stuff going on here. We also have a 1,000-van Amazon hub, 912 vans to be exact, Genentech great biomedical company there. The news is that since we expanded into this area from about 2009 on, all of these structures are data centers right down the line. JSR Micros here in Hillsboro did have a big win recently in Hitachi here, which was a very nice addition to our workforce inside our urban growth boundary. So again, looking at Hillsboro's potential campus site, it would be this area here. It would come out here. It would hop over the creek, and so about 500 acres is from Story Creek back here to Meek Road. Okay. Then you get out of the urban growth boundary, and here's the 383 acres here. You can see why that one makes such a great addition, just because it's an extension of all of our services are heading this way. It exists on the highway interchange. It would be basically one turn on or off, and then straight into the rotary here. And so it's not a matter of what I personally would want or see, but I would say it's understandable how that could happen and that would work as a campus. It's the least impact at this point. The urban growth boundary does come right down this creek. It does move over here and back down here. And there's been some testimony that none of this area is available. I think that testimony's been overplayed, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. Again, we have our major airport in the Hillsboro Airport, and the landing strips do come right into here. So unlikely a major fab with those chemical towers that I showed you would want to come in. So let's talk about the purple and green. Here's the purple, and as you push west, this is it's nothing that couldn't happen. It's just further out, and then it opens the gateway to the western expansion into the patchwork that is the Tualatin Valley farmlands heading towards Verboort, Roy, Forest Grove, Banks over here to my right, North Plains, Forest Grove here. This is the stronghold of what's left of the best farmland, arguably, in Oregon. So the purple here is out into here, about 700 acres. And then I think the focus of some of my writing and some of the discussions we've had and will continue to have is Hillsboro did come in and basically say that this land adjacent to our urban growth boundary is ready and should be used for manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, parts manufacturing, and as I stated, Mr. Diaz mentioned Gyra and Corvo. Now they could go here, they could go here. It's a very there's 171 acres on this corner. Then we get into about another 250 in here, and then we dive down into kind of a wetlands and an area that you just can't touch. Over here, as you get into the 700 acres, there's a large church. There's several large homes here, so this area becomes an area that really should be protected. But I think the real concern is what assets we have as a community in Northwest Hillsboro. First of all, one of our most popular neighborhoods. Not that that's any big deal, but yes, here we have Glencoe High School, our second Hillsboro high school, opened in 1981 with its first class in 1982, the home of the Crimson Tide. You then have wonderful subdivisions, Meacham Meadows, Sunburst Meadows, Glencoe Oaks, all projects we worked on. We sold this land to the school district. My brokerage firm did 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and that's Paul Patterson Elementary School, named after beloved Governor Paul Patterson. Again, can't really see factories right here. This area has been slated for housing, and you can see the composition of the neighborhood here. If one were to have, right now we have a farmland versus, decidedly developed. It's been that way for years. This is our hard edge of the UGB, and it's so common to see this in Oregon with the urban growth boundaries that we have. Then we get into our very big middle school, Evergreen Middle School. Again, would be right on the front row to whatever could go there for industry. And then beloved Jackson Elementary School. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 schools, plus a church down here with a day program, another church here with a day program, and just a whole heck of a lot of residences, including Master Plan Jackson School, which was our first major master plan development, and then the reaches of southern Hillsboro from there into our historic downtown. I did show an article where Jackson School, which has recently been redone into a it was controversial. There was a lot of trees cut. There was a lot of hard feelings about widening a road like this. It's really a community street, but it was done. It is done. Unfortunately, just to be truthful, when you're in development like I am, and as a writer and just an analyst, you see things, for what they are, and you stay around long enough. We all see this. You have northbound travel here to a light, a hard right, stop, another travel here. I mean, and the same thing coming this way, and the same thing, so commuters coming home at night to this heavily. So it's not lost on anyone that this lit intersection here could extend right through this new growth, and probably will, to circumvent this kind of thing. I don't think there's anybody that's going to say that it wouldn't. So again, this green area, this 700 acres, in my view, needs to be preserved as rural reserve, and it should probably be held until such a time as we get serious about housing, and that's a community discussion. I think that's the general consensus I hear from people. It was a shock to have the City of Hillsboro come forward and make that pitch to do that. There's no reason to do that unless you want to do that. So I think our city shows us its strength in terms of its willingness at the leadership level to sort of do things that aren't going to be popular. And I know that's hard, but the fact is, I don't think a lot of people are going to like that. And secondly, we don't need that expansion right now. The campus, that campus site up here, should that happen, it's going to take care of an immediate need, the CHIPS Act, the need to hurry, and all of that. So before we pull out, let's take a look. Pull out of this section of the map. Let's take a look here over to Helvetia. Sorry to be flying around so much. It's just the process. So that 408 acres, and QTS data center. Here's the data centers here. If you haven't seen those up close, this one's open. That's Digital Realty. I mean, it's something to see. Look at these coolers on the roof, and these are all powered units as well as coolers. Inside of that building are thousands and thousands of servers that are allowing me to do this work that I do today. But most of this money flows out of our community to Wall Street and around the world. There will be 4 more of these buildings coming up the hill. And you'll see, if you go up there now, these homes are being torn down as we speak. The urban growth boundaries here. This area was already zoned industrial up to West Union Road. Technical difficulty there. So there's the 408 acres, the red area. So the urban growth boundary comes here, goes here. Save Helvetia worked really hard to keep this area from coming in, this area. Interestingly enough, the landowners that I've spoken with here have not been approached by the City of Hillsboro. I think it was generally stated that the landowners in these growth area, expansion areas had been talked to. That's not to say it won't happen, but there are people who think West Union should be the hard line, and it may end up being very much like the Evergreen Road we were just looking at. Just in closing out of this section of what I wanted to talk about today after that fly around orientation is to not discount or minimize what a company like Gyra, can bring to the table. I would never do that. That is a great company, and we've heard Mr. Chang testify at the hearings. But if somebody should think that, okay, well, it's a advanced manufacturing or it's somehow not a fab, I mean, they make semiconductors there, and they have many of the same elements, the chemicals, the conflict with residential. That's Gyra, folks. So if you want Gyra-like facilities in the green area, just be aware that was what was advocated for. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but that happened. And so, here's a look at what the future for these areas is going to look like. There's some people that see gold and dollar signs and jobs, and they don't care about farmland or the environment. I'm somewhere in the middle where I understand the value of all that. I hear our brothers and sisters up and down the state of Oregon saying, Lebanon and Redmond would love to have something as big as Gyra. And all things being equal, if we could make, the just-in-time delivery and the parts manufacturing and the hub work for them, that would be amazing. I think we're going to see all kinds of cool things happen if the CHIPS Act can get us some money and jobs here in Oregon. Here's an angle just looking towards the beloved Oregon coast, which is just over those hills. And so we're really talking about an area moving from the edge being here. The edge will move to North Plains, almost to North Plains. Follow this greenway here, and then jump over here. And then it's really here along that edge that I think we all have to be worried. And then just take a hard look at what we're doing. How do we manage this? And I know everybody's working hard, right? There's a few of us somewhere in the middle on this. I like to think I'm in the middle. I'm looking for value for my community. I've seen the downside of it. I've seen the good side of it. Downside is environmental issues, traffic, stress on people, housing costs out of control. When you have a town like Hillsboro with more jobs or as many jobs as people are getting to that point, that's very unusual. It's very hard on our people, especially the people who are here. If you come here from out of state, you're probably prepared to pay the kind of money we have to pay. So let's just pause, and I'm going to switch to a different slide. Okay, here's the slide, one of the slides that Mr. Diaz showed to the CHIPS Act group. These are what we've been talking about. The yellow campus site, right? The purple area, the green area that I have concerns about. I think a lot of people do. And the red area that's across 26, not really an outlier. It's just there on the edge. Would be an expansion of this boundary with those relative acreages. There is some question now about the area south of this campus area. Again, this is the urban growth boundary. It's been shown on a kind of innocuous little slide that a lot of this is under contract or has been developed, but that area, as of right now, has about, in my estimation, it's about 350 acres of land that could be utilized. The port does own this area, so let's, for the sake of argument, let's call it 300. But it was minimized, and everyone went right past it. You could swap this purple area for what's left in here, which has not been developed. That is part of the grand bargain. You could take the purple and green area out of this equation, and very wisely do so, maybe, and you would be able to come south. Enough money and enough effort on behalf of everybody is going to probably make all of this work. And this doesn't happen overnight. That 800 acres would take 15 years to build, and any ancillary support services we have or need can be here. Now let's be honest. We're not going to get all the jobs in Hillsboro, nor should we want them. We want players to move around the state. We want Gresham and Wilsonville, and the other people who want growth. So that's just a reflection on. There's a question here that there's something missing in the presentations that have been made. Okay, and just to follow up on that comment I just made, here's the Hillsboro Economic Development page, and when you find your way here, if you dive in deep enough, you'll find an indexing of industrial lands, and this is live tonight on 3/14, almost midnight tonight, getting the midnight oil going here. Anyway, if I'm an outsider looking to come in, I go, what's this? Okay, and I get, hey, that's the Meek site, and I can view additional details. It's a great little tool they have here that'll bring that up, and there's an expansion of a photo. I can then see the site flyer, and this has been up for a while on Hillsboro's website, but it's a great little flyer where they're promoting Hillsboro Tech Park. They're talking about how far it is from the airports, what they have to offer. And then here's the stuff I just told you. Sewer station, power stations, and the 140 acres Hillsboro has, and then 2 owners with 40 and 80 acres who I know Hillsboro has been talking to. So this piece is being promoted. Mr. Diaz talked about that and said that, in fact, we have a public information request in, which he has not been able to answer in regards to whether the city's under contract or not. So it's highly possible Hillsboro has somebody ready to go on that site. It's this site that came in during the grand bargain that we've heard there's something going on it, but it is on the website. And again, if private individuals are going to be expected to sell and get out of the way for a fab like Intel or a TSMC or Samsung, this piece is not built. I know it's for sale. It may be under option, but it's actively being marketed at Hillsboro's website as a 221-acre parcel. And they're advertising Steve Seaver and John Brain from Trammell Crow, who worked with Hillsboro on Hillsboro's development where Hitachi went. These gentlemen know their stuff. Well, they're advertising it as corporate office, data center site, which, gosh, I hope not. Manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution. So, here's 221 acres for sale today. We could go out and get that and add that to the 800-acre campus site. The CHIPS Act money could get that. So as you hear all of this, please understand there's a lot going on, and not everything you're being shown at the Dog and Pony Show is absolutely true. I don't have a dog in the fight here, just my town. I'm not being paid by anybody. I'm not under contract with anybody. I am expressing my own personal opinions, but I'm giving you a whole lot of data to work with here too. We're going to take one more stop on the tour. So now's where things get a little interesting, and it just has to do with some of the folks on the Joint Semiconductor Subcommittee. And I'll just leave it at that because there's people beyond me working on that. I had testified asking for the members of the committee to disclose ex parte contacts, and that fell on deaf ears. I asked for transparency. I think a lot of us did. And I also asked for the landowners to be notified, and that has not happened either. So I think there's some procedural errors that have been done, but I'm not running that committee. It's being run by co-chairs. One of them's our own Senator Janine Solomon, and I think we have another representative on there, Nathan Souza from Hillsboro. So I wanted to introduce you to the northwesthillsboro.org website. This is the home of the Northwest Hillsboro Alliance for the Northwest Hillsboro Land Alliance. And this website's been around, I think it's been since 2018, 2016 maybe. And so it's made up of a group of local people who gathered together with some leadership some consultants, and they were able to formulate a group. That group has gone out and made their case of why they were taken from urban reserve as Hillsboro's future north edge. They were at the point of getting in and being officially recognized when the grand bargain happened, and one of the issues with the grand bargain was the way it happened. There had to be some agreement that Hillsboro wouldn't grow forever, and there had to be a hard edge for the farmland. So these folks got moved from farmland to potential urban reserve, and then back into a rural reserve during that political back and forth that happened in 2014 during the grand bargain. And they cover all that here about House Bill 4078. It's a good group of people. I know half of them. Having said that, they had a great plan that they wanted to promote, and the concept plan is under the information tab. When you go to that, they're planners, and I know for a fact several of our city and county officials have met with these folks on a regular basis, or at least on a semi-regular basis, have talked to them, support their ideas, and this gets into a whole legend about how they were going to do this. The blue was going to be, again, here's the urban growth boundary here, and then it gets kind of interesting because there was a lot of questions about how did that one big piece end up in Hillsboro. And so, no disrespect to anybody who had this plan with the town center, and here's our green area that I'm so worried about, all residential under their plan. They got it right. That's the way to do it. All this can be industrial. The winds blow this way generally, so this is basically people living upwind. And then there's some town centers and some other expansions here. And there's actually some setbacks between Hillsboro and North Plains. Okay, the only reason I brought this up is I want to show you a side-by-side slide. So we'll just throw this down. I'm not going to lay the gauntlet down, but I will say, number one, on the left, Site 46, Joint Committee on Semiconductors, 11/22/2022. That map was generated by the Land Task Force, which was co-chaired by Hillsboro Mayor Steve Calloway, and others, Travis Stovall, Mayor Travis Stovall from Gresham. But on the right is that land I just showed you, the Northwest Hillsboro Land Alliance land, and we have some political folks that are at least conversant and familiar with the Northwest Hillsboro Land Alliance group, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that that group's land was picked up off that map and placed over here. It is by far the largest site in the entire state that's being looked at. How it got moved, the exact same parcel was included in the finalists, and not only included in the finalists, but it's being pushed as like the only site. And there's questions about that. I raised a whole bunch of them in my presentation here. So I would just say, whoever is tied between the current state process, whoever may have ex parte contacts, if any, that need to be outlaid and put on the table, maybe the time has passed now for that to have happened. I don't know exactly if there's anybody that would want to do that, but I do know there's familiarity between several people that own this land and several people that are serving in leadership roles on this in this procedure. And boy, would that be a bad look if that was to show up and ruin the hard work of everybody. It's, again, transparency, communication, being fair in process, and all that. So as we look to next week and what appears to be the passage of the CHIPS Act, Senate Bill 4, I just think we need to focus on making good decisions. And I want to close by saying that I think Daniel Nguyen from Lake Oswego on the committee has showed great leadership, and he wanted to engage in an open debate amongst the committee members on Monday, 3/14, and that process was squelched. I think the people of Oregon deserve to have a healthy debate, and I hope some of the committee members will watch this, and whether you want to listen to any of my opinions or anything, the facts are self-evident that our city wants certain things, the state needs certain things, the industry needs certain things. We've got to find a middle ground. If it needs to be this 800-acre campus here, and our friends in North Plains right here across the highway can be our supplier of advanced manufacturing and the support services, what a nice marriage that might be, because they certainly need the jobs. And the state needs to have a win-win out of this. The state doesn't need a black eye with its people who care about our land use goals, who care about goal one, the entire. Guys, in closing, since I wasn't allowed to testify, and I'm probably not going to be able to, because I don't think they're going to want me testifying, at least based on what happened the other night. The amount of time that the committee is giving to lawyers who are advising the committee how to make this a land use hearing, the land use hearing aspects of Senate Bill 4, they're going to pretend that it is not a land use hearing, and therefore they're going to take away the redress and the rights, the fundamental rights of the people of Oregon under goal one of our land use goals: the right to be involved, the right to be able to have a case heard, the right to be able to argue, the right to be able to be treated in an equitable and fair manner. To watch the committee work so hard to find a way to deny the people of Oregon, if all you got to do is watch this, and it becomes evident. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. You can see it's they're constructing something purposefully, working with. They're working with some of the best land use lawyers in the state, who normally are opposed and not working with the state. They're usually fighting LCDC and fighting DLCD and fighting Land Use Board of Appeals. So you kind of went to bed with the devil in a way to make sure you get what you want. It's a bad look. So I understand you need to expedite, and you need an expedited process, but quit trying so hard to deny people. It's only going to come back and bite you in the butt. And in the end, that's sad. You guys deserve a win-win. The people of Oregon deserve a win-win. And this is our opportunity. So let's do it in a way we can all be proud of. We can pull this off. And Oregon does have a lot to offer. If somebody doesn't want to come here because we're not giving them the world on a platter in 2 months or 6 months or a year, maybe that's not somebody we want here. Okay? We have a lot to offer. So let's be proud of what we have. We've got a site here in Hillsboro ready to go, right here. That'll be almost 500 acres. Let's grab this site. Let's come down in here and have 600 to 800 acres. I know if Mr. Diaz and his team get some CHIPS Act money or some of the rainy day fund that's being set aside, they can be effective in gathering the land up. I know there's sellers up here in the red area, and I have a lot of friends on both sides of the aisle that want in or don't want anything in. And my position has been, we've got to find a way to do the right thing, at the same time preserve our farmlands and protect our children. Let's not be stupid. Sorry to go so long, but I had to throw it down for what I know. Y'all have a great night, and good luck, and let's hope for a great solution.